Hello, and welcome to Out the Box. Ever since I was a child, I've always believed that we couldn't possibly be the only humans in the entire universe. Well, it seems I might have been right. On today's episode, we will be looking at cases of people who encounter human-looking aliens. Starting with Jessie Rostenberg, on the 21st of October 1954 in Staffordshire, England. Jessie and her two young sons see a very large metallic disc-shaped craft hovering over their farmhouse, with two human-looking occupants in the craft steering back at them.
Well, it was one ordinary day. I was waiting for my husband to come home from work, and my two sons went to Seifert to school, and I was getting changed, and I heard this terrific noise. It was just like a giant cauldron of water being poured onto a fire, a shh sort of noise, you know. And my first reaction was, oh, the children. I thought maybe a plane was crashing or something like that. And I slipped my jumper on and went outside to find my two sons lying flat on the ground in the garden in front of the house, shouting, "Mummy, Mummy, there's a flying saucer." Well, naturally I just said, "Come on, don't be stupid. Come in the house." But felt sort of a strange sensation. Wended my way up the side of the house to where we had a pump where we used to get all our water from, and automatically looked up to see this, all I can describe, this huge Mexican hat. It was stationary, this thing, and it was bright silver in colour, and it had a dome. It was tilted to sort of, I could see the occupants in it.
You saw people in it?
I saw people in it. There were two people in there. These people were beautiful people. That's the only way I can describe them. They had long golden hair, like a page boy bob, just like the old kings. You used to see photographs of the old kings. And the colour of their hair was golden. Now, I was really...
What were they dressed in?
They had a sort of a polo neck jumper affair, like a ski top suit, in pale blue. Now, these people weren't sat behind, one behind the other. They were sat together, but this, whatever it was tilted so that I could see them and they could see me.
Were you looking at them through windows, through portholes? Or
no, not portholes. It was just sort of like a cockpit, I suppose, that had this perspex or glass or whatever it was. They could see me anyway, and I could see them. And they had beautiful faces. I shall never forget their faces as long as I live. Their foreheads seemed to be a bit larger than, you know, the bottom of their faces as normal people you would expect to see. But maybe this was just whatever they had round their heads, which was like a transparent fishbowl. And they just looked. And I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although my mind was ticking over. And they looked so sympathetic that I was just mesmerised for what seemed to be, ages, but it could have only been seconds. And I turned to sort of look down at the boys, was unaware that they were with me because I was so absorbed. And the next thing, I looked up and it was gone.
How low had it been?
It had been, the height I couldn't tell you, but the house that you've seen, it was just on top of the roof. It was hovering on top of the roof.
How big was it compared with the size of the house?
It swallowed the whole circumference of the roof. I couldn't see, the roof was completely blotted out. The chimneys I couldn't see. All I could see was this massive object that I described as like a Mexican hat without the bubbles.
And then it flew away sideways or upwards?
No, I didn't see. I just looked up and it had gone. But I assume it went straight up, because for a short while after in the sky I looked around and I said to my two boys, "Where, can you see anything? Can you see anything?" And they said, "There it is, Mum," and they pointed up, and I watched it. It was just like a little cotton reel in the sky, and it circled us 3 times. It went round 3 times, and then it just shut off, and that was it. When I started to analyse myself afterwards, I feared that I might have had an hallucination, but then I knew I hadn't had, because my sons were so sure about what they'd seen and what I'd seen. And it went through my mind that it was a secret weapon from Russia, and then I thought, well, it can't be that, because if they had something like that, they wouldn't need to fear anybody or anything.
Were you scared by it? Did you run indoors?
Oh, I was petrified. I couldn't move. I couldn't move a muscle. I was paralyzed with fear. But now I wouldn't be. Because now, when I look back, you know, I think, what an amazing thing to have happened, and for me to have seen it.
And when your husband came home, where were you?
Well, when my husband came home from the office, I was locked in the house with my children, under a big kitchen table that we were using.
Under the table?
Under the table, yes. It's funny now when I look back, you know, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but this is the truth. This happened. And that's it.
Meet Joe Simonton, who claims to have had a strange encounter in April of 1961 with aliens that looked human. Joe explains how he sees a metallic saucer-shaped craft slowly descending over his property with 2 small human-looking people in the craft, who interestingly just wanted some fresh water from him.
Joe Simonton of Eagle River, Wisconsin, spins a yarn about an April morning in 1961. A morning when, he says, he came face to face with another world.
Right here is where this flying saucer, this UFO, landed. Right here about where I'm standing. And it was a big, huge thing, and I wondered what the heck it was. I was in my kitchen having a bite of lunch, and I turned around, put the dishes in the sink, and I looked out the window, and that's when I first saw this thing coming straight down, just like an elevator. And first I thought the roof went off of my house, and I thought, no, the roof is green, and this is bright. What the heck is it? So I rushed out to see what it was, and by that time there was a hatchway opening up in the top of it, just like the trunk of your car. And in there stood a little man, I say a little man, about 5 foot tall, holding up a jug or a container, and he motioned, he wanted to drink. He motioned for water. So I walked up to him to get this jug, and I looked at his eyes, and they were so penetrating that I had to look away. So I went to the basement to get this water, and I thought, well, they want water, so I'll take it up to them and see what happens. And with that, I brought the water up, and he was looking at me when I first came out of the basement. But I didn't look at his face until I got right up to him. Then I looked up, and I handed the jug up with both hands, and I had that same look in his eyes, a sort of a penetrating look. And when he took the water, I balanced myself with this hand against the machine, and I stepped back a few steps. And then with that, he set the jug down, and he gave me a salute with the back of his hand, a gesture of thanks, I presume. And then, well, I gave him my salute. What am I going to do? So I noticed this little man, same size of a man, right to the right side of the hatchway, cooking these pancakes, which I have one here yet. He was frying these pancakes, and I pointed to him and made a gesture like eating. I thought maybe I'd get a conversation out of him. Nobody was saying anything. But he didn't say a word. He just reached over and he got a handful of them, 4 of them, and he handed them down to me. And they were hot and greasy. And this man cooking these pancakes, it was on a square grill-like concern. I couldn't see any flame, but it seemed to be very hot. There was smoke coming from it. And if that was their food, God help them, because I took a bite of one of them, and it tasted like a piece of cardboard. And if that's what they lived on, no wonder they're small. And with that, he reached up and he closed this hatch with a heavy thud click like when it latched. and you couldn't a bit more see where that hatch was than you could see a hole in my hand. And with that, the thing started to raise just like it came down. Everything was timed perfect. It went up about 20 feet. It tilted at 45 degrees straight south and shot off. And within 2 or 3 seconds, it was out of sight.
Next up is Travis Walton, who in 1975 was abducted by aliens. He was working with a team of loggers, and on their way home, they notice a bright hovering UFO through the trees. Travis gets out the truck and gets closer to the craft, but he gets too close and is hit with a beam of light that knocks him 10 feet back and unconscious. This left the rest of the crew startled, so they got out of there, only to come back shortly after and find the craft and Travis gone. But what we don't often hear with Travis's case since 1975 is for some reason the media, and even the blockbuster movie that was made about the encounter, all failed to mention he didn't only encounter small alien creatures on board the ship, but he also interacted with human aliens as well.
It was hovering up here, just below the tops of the trees, and it was about 20-25 feet in diameter.
What he saw was a bright object hovering in midair.
When I got up about here, I crouched down behind a log, and I could hear a sound coming from it. It was kind of a very strange mechanical sound. And I was kind of wrestling with the idea of being so close to this. I'd expected it to take off, you know, and in running up here, I figured this was my last chance to, you know, to see this thing up close. But I decided I'd better get the hell out of there. And as I raised up and turned to go, I felt this numbing shock and blacked out. The guys in the truck said they saw this brilliant beam come out of the bottom of the craft and hit me in the head and the chest and knocked me flying through the air.
When his companions returned to the scene, they found no sign of Travis. He maintains that he blacked out and came to inside a strange room.
I didn't regain consciousness very quickly. I was very groggy and in a lot of pain. But when I could finally focus my eyes, I saw these creatures standing over me, which just flipped me out immediately. I was pretty hysterical. I was screaming all kinds of things at them, and they started towards me. And I grabbed a thing off of the table there and lashed out at them, and they stopped. They just kind of put their hands out like that at me, and then they just turned around and left the room. And I was afraid they'd come back, so I was going to try to find a way out of there. I guess I kind of assumed I was still, you know, or that the craft was still here in the woods. But I went looking for a way out. I went into another room, and as I was looking for a way out, another being came in, and this was a very human-appearing person. He led me out of this craft, which appeared to be parked inside of a larger building or a larger craft. He just took me right out of there, down a hallway to a room where there were some other people who looked like him. They put this mask over my face. It was kind of like an oxygen mask thing. There was no hose connected to it. They put it over my face, and that was the last thing I knew. I just blacked out.
Travis Walton says that the incident ended 4 days later when he found himself lying at the side of a road not far away.
Next we have Joyce Bowles and Ted Pratt. On November 14th, 1976, in Winchester, England. Joyce and Ted were driving home at night when they see a strange light and then encounter a cigar-shaped craft with human occupants that take control of their vehicle.
One November evening last year, Mrs. Bowles and a friend of the family, Mr. Pratt, were driving out of Winchester when they saw a light in the sky, a light seen by many other people that night.
This is where we see the large orange light.
That's right, yes, we did. Yes, on their left.
On the left here.
Yes. And
then it disappeared, and I am coming up to it now. It appeared again here. But right. It started hovering down below the back of these trees and the hedges here.
We came on down the road for another quarter of a mile, maybe a bit more. We turned sharp left to come into Chilcombe Lane. It's a bad bend, isn't it? Going down this lane, and we were doing about 20 mile an hour, maybe 20, 25 mile an hour. Done about 70 yards down, all of a sudden this car suddenly went crazy. It just leapt off the road to the right, and the engine started to rev. We hit the grass verge, which is a very wide grass verge, about 15 yards wide, and we were heading towards a high hedge. So I grabbed the steering wheel as Mrs. Bowles was fighting with it, and suddenly the car straightened itself. We came down the grass verge for about 10 to 15 yards, and we came to a stop. And it was though we'd hit an invisible barrier, which it gave, because it didn't throw me forward into the seat, but it gave and then brought us back to our normal stopping position.
That was when we see...
Well, then sorry, yes?
That was when we see what I shall say a cigar-shaped object hovering in front of us. Inside were 3 figures.
Yes, they had like a cockpit in the cabin was in the front of the cigar-shaped thing. And was lit up, but not glowingly lit up. It was a very easy light to look at.
It was hovering. It had either steam or vapour coming out like gas jets. Then I see one of these figures get out of this thing, this object, and it started walking across towards me.
Yes, it was.
Now, as it was walking across towards me, I heard a whistle.
Which I didn't hear.
It's like a whistling kettle starting to whistle. Now, he had on like a boiler suit, but it was with a polar neck collar. He had a seam down on his right-hand side. As he walked across, he come to my window. He put his arm on the roof of my car and looked in. Now, he was a tall man, roughly 6'1", 6'2". He had pink eyes, which were very piercing. He had sideboards and a beard which met. He looked in at me, then he looked at Ted. After looking at Ted, he looked at my dashboard. And as he was looking at the dashboard, my car engine started up. Now, the car ignition keys was turned off. And as the engine started up of my car, my headlights were 4 times powerful than what they normally are. It was just like a glow of white. I see a movement of this figure. Oh, by the way, I grabbed Ted. And I said, no, Ted, don't get out, because he wanted to get out. And I just literally wrapped my body around Ted. And then I opened one eye, because I'd had my eyes shut. And I opened one eye and I said, look out, Ted, he's going round the back to you. I see a movement, thinking he was going round the right, all the way round my car. Ted looked over his left-hand shoulder to have a look around to see if he was coming round. And my words were, don't open the door, Ted, don't open the door. But while Ted was looking round and me huddled to him with my eyes closed, the figure disappeared with the object. After it gone, after a few seconds, which seemed hours to us, Ted said, well, let's go. Oh, he asked me if he could drive. And I said, not likely. It only meant because it meant me getting out of my car. I put it in first and started off, but we could not move. It was as though as we were still hitting an invisible barrier. Well, I put her back in neutral and waited for a few seconds, and then I started off again. And we went off perfectly normal in the car. On the Monday, when I got up, I had a rash on my face, down my neck, and along onto my shoulder.
Which side?
On the right-hand side. It was all like blotchy. It could have been a nerve rash, or it could have been where that gentleman was stood by my window. Incidentally, since this happening, I have had a telephone call from a person from London telling me on no account am I to say anything to anyone about this, what we've seen, because I should be having a government official come round to see me. And after all, this is England, and this is a free country, and I will speak and say what I want, which is the truth.
In 1978, John and Gloria Mann and their 2 young children, plus John's sister, were driving through Oxfordshire, England, at around 10:15 p.m. when a large metallic saucer-shaped UFO comes down and blocks the road, and then they are taken on board by human-looking aliens. They were given a medical examination and were shown around their ship, and they even told the Mann family why they were here on planet Earth.
It was late on the night of June the 19th, 1978, and the Mann family, Mum, Dad, their 2 young daughters and an aunt, were driving along this lonely Oxfordshire road near Farringdon when they pulled up and got out to look at a strange light in the sky. John Mann, a self-employed builder who never used to believe in UFOs, told me what happened next.
Well, I got out of the car and was about to walk towards this flying saucer that we saw up close. And Gloria, my wife, panicked and told me to get back into the car, which I did. And we drove off, but apparently we found out later that the flying saucer then came round into the road and stopped the car when the whole family got out, and we were surrounded by a mist of light and floated up into the flying saucer. We were given a very brief medical examination and then shown around their ship, where we were allowed to ask questions. Later, the flying saucer moved to further down the road, approximately about a mile, where we were dropped and put back down, and our car was there waiting for us.
Were you able to find out much about them, about what they were doing, why they were here?
Well, they told us they were here because their own planet had been destroyed, and they are now looking for another planet where they can live.
What did they look like, these people from Janos?
Well, the women were about my height, very fair, quite attractive, some of them, and the men were about John's height, probably taller, and they were very fair as well, very fair actually.
And they spoke English?
They spoke English to us, yes. When they spoke to each other, they spoke another tongue.
What about the spaceship itself, Francis? What was that like?
Well, it was very large. We think there's probably 4 stories. We certainly went up some ramps. It was really like being in a submarine, only much larger. Lots of corridors that went round corners. Lots of machinery on the walls, in the medical room particularly, and not so much in the restaurant. There was just the one machine on the wall there where they got drinks and food.
Tanya, you were only a little girl at the time. What do you remember of the spaceship?
Well, I remember when Mummy had a drink and she said that my feet are like jelly.
Oh yes, because I was scared.
Because you were only a very little girl at the time, weren't you?
Yes.
Natasha, what about you? What do you remember about that flying saucer and the people on it?
First of all, I remembered Zacchaeus, this lady. She was looking after me and she took me into this room where I saw pictures.
But these are some drawings that you made about what happened. What do they show? What's on that first one?
First of all, this was when Dad stopped the car and we looked at the flying saucer. This is Zacchaeus and she looked after me on the flying saucer and she showed me the pictures.
Do any of you now have any doubt at all that it really happened?
None whatsoever. We didn't see a UFO, we saw a flying saucer up close.
Late at night, on the 28th of November 1980, in West Yorkshire, England, police officer Alan Godfrey was on duty. And while driving, he is amazed to come across a large diamond-shaped UFO hovering in the middle of the road, blocking his path. The next thing Officer Godfrey remembers is him being on the opposite side of the craft, driving away.
So it's an extraordinary story, isn't it, really? You recollect things in your mind, and you recollect other things only as a result of hypnosis. Can we start with the first bit? What were you actually doing that night, and what did you see?
Well, I was driving the Panda car along Burnley Road in Todmorden, and I came across this strange craft blocking the road.
Describe it to me.
Well, it was about 20 feet high, about 14 feet wide. It was a diamond-shaped object, hovering about 5 feet off the ground.
Now, at this point, you didn't see anybody, did you?
No, I didn't see anything other than that.
Did you approach it?
I got within about 20 feet of it.
And then you went back to your car to report it, did you?
No, I didn't get out of the car.
Ah.
I didn't want to get out of the car.
You didn't?
No.
But you got on the blower, did you?
I got on the radio, both radios, the VHF in the car and the UHF personal radio that we carry.
Yeah.
And I got no response at all.
They didn't work?
No.
Was that unusual?
Not in that particular area. There are black spots in the area. But the radios have worked there since.
And then you left the scene, did you?
The next thing I remember was I was at the other side of where the object had been, driving the car.
Away?
Away.
Did you report it when you got back?
I certainly did.
They thought you were crackers, presumably.
Yeah, they did.
Now then, as a result of hypnosis, a lot of that story has been filled in, hasn't it? Now, what do you recollect from the result of the hypnosis?
Well, as I say, I've no conscious memory of what I said under hypnosis. The only thing I can go off is the hypnotic regressions were videotaped.
Yeah.
And I think there was about 3 or 4 tapes done. And when I actually was allowed to see them at the end of the session, it was quite frightening.
What you'd said under hypnosis? So tell me the other story now, the one that they drew out under hypnosis.
Well, under hypnosis, when I see the craft itself, as I said before, I didn't get out of the car consciously. I find myself getting out of the car, and for some reason, I have no idea why, a strange, very powerful beam of light is shone towards me, which blinds me. I jump back in the car in panic, and then there is some sort of a blackout. And after the blackout, I wake up in some sort of an examination room.
I see. So, this spaceship, or whatever it is, did you see that in your recollected...
Yes, everything under hypnotic regression, everything was accurate right up to...
The bit that...
when I got out of the car, yes.
Okay, well, describe this creature to me, this man.
Well, he was a humanoid, or of human appearance. He's about 6 feet high.
But not quite a human being, you say?
Well, he had a human appearance. Yeah. He had a beard, and he wore some sort of a skull cap, and he wore like a white gown. He was very pleasant in appearance. He wasn't at all frightening to look at.
Okay, now you've got yourself into this room. What goes on there? Who else is there?
There were, I think I said there was 8 small 3-foot-high creatures that transpilated during the hypnotic regression as robots.
Were you in a normal room, or were you in a spaceship, rather like Doctor Who's time capsule? Were you in something as kind of...
It looked bigger than his capsule.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't look very big, does it, really?
Yeah.
But inside it, yes, I would say it's very similar.
And then they tried to undress you, didn't they, at one point? Take your shoes and socks off. Why was that?
Well, this is one of the funny things about it. When I got back to the station, I found that my left boot was split, and I had a burn mark on the instep of my left foot. And in the hypnotic regression, they actually examined my left foot. Now, that's remarkable to me, with the other evidence of the other police officers seeing the craft as well.
How did your experience end in this place you were with these people?
The doctor woke me up. We never actually got to an ending. Yeah. I was wired up to some heart machines, and they completely went off the scale. I was in such stress that both doctors stopped the hypnotic regressions.
Now tell me, what do you make of it all? Do you believe now in UFOs, or what? Are you convinced that those things actually happen to you, or it's just in your mind somewhere as an imagination or a dream or something like that?
Well, the UFO certainly existed.
You're sure of that?
Yes, it was a nuts and bolts craft. I think I'm quite capable of seeing something from 20 feet.
If I said to you anything you say will be taken out and used in evidence, you would say that you saw that thing?
Yes, I would swear on the Holy Bible. What I saw that day, I've seen nothing of the like except in science fiction films.
And what other thoughts have you had about the whole experience?
The abduction part, well, I've thought about it. I've thought, well, perhaps it's something that I've read about and seen as Doctor Who, and because of my experience, it somehow got jumbled up. Yeah. Or it actually happened.
There is a variety of reasons why aliens might visit planet Earth. From simple things like getting fresh water, to checking us out like we're zoo animals. Or something more serious like looking for habitable planets to live on, and medical testing of humans, and taking samples from us. But for what purpose? I wonder. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Out the Box. And if you did, please put a thumbs up on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'm out.
White light.
There's a light. It's not horrible. Who's horrible? There. Who's they? I want to talk about that.